I'm Roger Bain from Bain Custom Woodworking. I'm located just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, in a city called Mount Juliet, Tennessee. Stop by if you're ever in the area. So today we're going to talk about my leveling sled. I've had a number of posts up on Instagram recently where people have asked where I purchased the sled, who made it, and how I have mine set up. So we're going to talk about this today, and we'll see if we can answer some questions or at least introduce you to the product that I'm using. So let's talk about the sled. The sled consists of these two rails, this unit here that holds the router, and this unit will slide back and forth. It's on bearings inside of this unit here. I purchased this unit from Brent at Clean Cut Woodworking. You can find him on Instagram. You can find him on Facebook. This is the 40 by 47 unit. He has one smaller, a couple of them larger than this. This works perfect in my shop. I don't do many items that are larger than this. So when I purchased this, I needed a place to install it. Nice thing about this unit is this is a separate piece, this is a separate piece, and this is a separate piece. And it comes apart in about 3 minutes. And you can hang these up anywhere you want, get them out of your way. The router can even stay on here if it's mounted correctly. In my instance, I already had a 4x4 mobile workbench that I work with on a regular basis. So for me, it made sense to set this on here and use it here. It doesn't stay on here permanently. There are times when I take this off, I set it aside, and I actually hang this on my wall with my router connected, and it's not going to fall off. It's connected securely, and it's right out of my way. But for the most part right now, I have it left on this bench because I'm using it on a regular basis. So I get a lot of live edge rounds from my son-in-law in Indiana, black walnut and some hard maple. So I bring those down from Indiana, and I use this leveling sled to level them up. Then I put them into my drum sander, clean them up, and we make them those as end tables and coffee tables for folks. Now, in this instance today, I'm experimenting to make an end grain cutting board. Never made one in the past, but I wanted to try it, so I had some time last week, so I put one together. It's pretty small, but I'm going to actually use the sled today to level this up. Okay, I've heard some stories about putting them in your planers. You might have some problems with them. I really don't want to take that chance, not when I have a great leveling sled that can do the work for me, and we're going to do that. So let's talk about the parts and pieces that I have here before we go any further. The sled, the instance, comes with your rails and this unit. This unit slides on bearings. Your router will mount to this 1/2-inch piece of what I'm going to call plexiglass, and I'll let Brent correct me on that. I'm fine with that. Now in my instance, I have a Triton 3¼ horsepower router mounted to it. I have 2 bolts, one here and one in the back, come right up through. They do not get in the way. I can literally take the nuts off of these, and this router picks right up and off without any problems. So if I need to use this for any hand work, I can. I had a Porter cable router hooked to it at one point. It works great, but I needed just a little bit more power, and honestly, I need that for my dovetail jig, so I don't like to have to move them in and out. I actually have this one here for this sled. I have a handheld router for some of my smaller projects that I route with that. I have my Porter cable for my dovetail jig. I get it. Not everybody has 3 or 4 routers. I was always envious of people that did, and I find now that I'm running my own business, it's more convenient to have multiple tools, and it takes time to save that money. I didn't do it overnight. I've been doing this for a while. It takes time, but this was a good purchase for this, and it works very well for me. Again, this is the Triton 3¼ horsepower router. So what I did with this is there are 2 other parts to this that you really can't see, and it's kind of hard to see even if I raise it up. But you'll see the router bit down here. But what you won't see is there's an extender inside of this. So I purchased the Amana RC2254 carbide tip router bit for this. It's a 2-blade cutter, and each blade or each cutter has 4 separate blades on it, so I can turn it as they get dull. But what I needed, because of the height of this, was an extender to extend that router bit. So I went to Infinity and bought their collet extender. Works great. Put the collet inside in the router, put the router bit inside the collet, lock them both down. You don't have any problems with that at all. But let me talk about one thing that I do like about this router. Now, as you start getting down towards the bottom, and you only want to take a little bit off, you can certainly adjust your height with this piece here. But what you can't see in the back here is there is a knob here that I can lower that router bit in increments, and it's a very slight increment. It really makes my leveling that much better. So when I want to just hit the top off, I can do that. Really like this. It has multiple speeds on it, variable speeds. Somebody asked me one day, well, how fast do you level? It's at the highest speed. And I want to think that the box, if I looked at the box, it told me 21,000 RPM, something like that. So it's pretty fast. It's doing some good cutting. I've yet to have this router not be able to go through a piece of wood. And most of the items I do are live edge rounds. I did some hard maple recently, and one of them was 9 inches thick. I was able to raise the sled up that high, get this to level that off, and slowly move it down. We cleaned it up to, I think we cleaned it up to probably 6 inches. And the reason being, it was when it got cut, it really got cut kind of cattywampus. So it was 9 inches here, and it was like, 6 inches down here. So we could have done it with a chainsaw, could have done it with a chain mill, but I don't have the chain mill here. This worked great. It took me about an hour. I got that thing down from 9 inches down to about 6 inches, and it really come out very, very nice. So that's the ideal part of the way I have my sled mounted. Now I can turn it, and let me do that and see if I can show folks what I have here. So I'm not sure if you can see it very well, but I have these channels here. So my 2x4s are mounted to the channels, and then I have channels mounted here on each corner, and I can raise these channels manually. There's a timber lock screw in here. I screw it into the 2x6, and I can raise it. So I have it lowered at about 3 inches, and I can raise it about as high as 9 inches, and it's still very, very stable. I need a better way to do this, but for me, working by myself, this works great. So what I will normally do, and let me spin this guy right around, and she does get heavy. I've got a load of wood underneath it. But normally what I will do is I will figure out how thick is my piece of wood that I'm working with, and I will raise these to that point. I think the highest point I can get is 9 inches, and that was the highest point I had on that one board that I needed to cut. So once I get that to that 9 inches, I just leave it there. Most of my stuff I start with is probably, 5, 6, 7 inches thick. I don't do a lot. My rounds, I try to get them cut as into a reasonable rate when I can. But what I don't want to have to do is, as I start to lower the piece of wood, the workspace, and start to get that piece level, obviously these are going to have to move down. Or I'm sorry, excuse me, move up. So what I do is I'll raise it to that level. So let's say I'm working with a 6-inch board. I will raise these so the router bit is right at that 6 inches. So what I'll do is I know that I've got about a 1/2 inch bit here, about 1/2 inch thick. I will raise these rails so that that whole router bit sits below the top of that workpiece, and now I can start leveling that. As that piece starts going down and I can't lower my router any lower, I actually will insert these boards underneath it. And normally I have 2 of them. This thick one is about 2 inches thick. Then I have a 3/4 inch piece of hardboard here, and then I do have a piece of 3/4 inch plywood. I'll slide these underneath, and that'll raise my workpiece back up so I don't have to mess with these again, especially if I'm doing multiples that day. I only want to set these once and not have to reset them multiple times. This allows me to work. This is the highest I've ever had to set these. As you can see, and let me come up front here. you have my 2-inch piece, 3/4 inch here, 3/4 inch. There is a 1/2 inch piece of plywood here. And the reason being is this is the smallest piece I've ever worked with. We're going to try and level this up. So I needed to get it. My rails are lowered as much as I can get them. So I needed this to come up. And if I come in and lower this down, you'll see that I will hit. So I have plenty of workspace to work with now. As I start to go down, I can get down lower than what my workpiece is. But I set these rails once, and then I use these to raise my workspace. As the workspace gets lower, I need to raise it up towards my router again. I find for me that works fine. I'm a one-man show. Don't want to handle things any more than I absolutely have to. That works great for me. One other thing that I do have is when I'm routering, when I'm leveling, I go outside. It's a mess. This level or router will throw sawdust and bits of wood everywhere. Nice and clean, very, very smooth when you're done. But I want to protect myself. So I bought this full face mask respirator from a company called Parcil Safety, Parcil. They're in Indiana. Obviously, I don't have my filters on here now because they're in a drawer where they should be when you're not using your mask. It's full face. So when I put this on, everything here is covered. When this starts throwing wood, it hits this safety glass and doesn't hit my face. I also, and I don't have them here, I'll wear firm grip gloves because as I work with this, and you'll see when I work with it, I work with it from the side and I hold it here so I have a good steady grip on it. Those pieces are hitting my hands. And after a while, it's like being stung by hundreds of bees. So I wear gloves just so I don't get that. So the key when you set this up is make sure that the bench is level. So once the bench is level, then make sure these rails are level this way and this way. And then make sure this is as level as you can get it. And this unit will level up anything you want to work with. I have yet to have a piece that I've attempted to work with that this unit will not work for me. Now, obviously, I can only go so wide, but I don't work with anything that wide. Not at this point. If I do, then we'll readjust. Nice thing about this unit, if I get something that's longer, let's say I get something that's longer than 48 inches, two things I can do is I can slide the workpiece on my bench back and forth as long as I keep it level. The other thing I can do, I can take these 2x4s right off. I can send them somewhere else and move the unit as well. This is a very portable unit. Really, really slick. So let me pause it here. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. I'm free for questions. I'm free to learn. I'm swapping emails right now with somebody that's helping me figure out a better way to adjust the height on this. But this height works for me right now. Let me pause this. We're going to roll outside and then we're going to start videoing working on this cutting board. Let's see how it happens. All right, so stand by. We'll be right back. All right, folks, so as promised, we've stepped outside. You can hear the locusts out here screaming for rain. Not sure why. We got enough rain last night. It's getting pretty warm here in Tennessee, so we won't be out here too long. But let's get this setup going, and let's see if we can get this to work. Go get my filters for this. It won't do me any good. So we're back inside. As you saw outside, it was a little messy, and that went a little quick, but which is okay. But the goal of leveling, remember, is we're not sanding. What we're doing is we're just making sure that all of these parts are level across the board, level here, and make sure that our thicknesses are level on all four sides. So that's what I've done. Let's take and see how close we are. I'm sure we're off just a little bit just because of the nature of my beast. So I'm at just under 1 3/4 inches on this side. Right there for this one. A little bit under that one. That's okay. We'll fix that with the sander, and dead on here. So what we did basically is we took, these are our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sections that were glued together as end grain. And all I did with this is I just cleaned it up to make sure that these were flat and even on this side. Then I turned it over and I did the same thing here. And you'll see that it's going to leave these little marks. Par for the course, we haven't sanded this yet. We'll take this through over to the drum sander and we'll do that as well. But the whole purpose of this talk was to talk about the Sled from Clean Cut Woodworking, talk about the router that I use, how I set it up on my workbench, and how I use it, and the tools that I use with it. I have found this to be an invaluable tool. I have used this on, so if I have a piece, so I did some cutting boards or cutting blocks last week. They're about 2.5 inches thick. They are 24 by 24. They're very large. Well, that won't fit through my planer. My planer is only a 13-inch rigid straight knife planer. So what I did is I used this. I got them level as best I could. I glued them together, and then when they were glued and the glue was dry, I brought them here to clean up anything that wasn't perfect. Where normally I would send through my planer, I cleaned them up. Then I went to my drum sander. So I used this to do larger items than what my planer can handle. Love this tool. I hope to have this tool for many years to come because it's convenient, it's easy to set up, and I'm telling you, the return on investment, I've paid for this thing fourfold in the past 1.5 years. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please go over and follow me at Bain Custom Woodworking on Instagram. Follow me here and subscribe here on YouTube. I don't do a lot of YouTube, but I will try to stay on top of these better than I have been. Any questions, by all means, ask them. I'm open to any way I can make this better because that's what this community is for. Not only am I maybe showing someone else something new that they've never considered, but I have more mature and experienced woodworkers will reach out to me and say, hey, try this, it might work a little bit better for you. That's what we're here for. So I hope you enjoyed this. Feel free to leave your comments, ping me with any questions or suggestions. Please subscribe to this channel, and by all means, as we always say, keep making sawdust. Thank you.